Welcome in, everyone, to Football Friday, presented by Football Addicts Anonymous. Just Chris and I, once again. I
That's all right. It
don't
goes
know if
faster
Mark's
that
coming
way.
on or not. I haven't got any update. So hopefully it'll go fast. Like I said, I'm trying to get some plays in for the baseball slate tonight. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, got a couple NCAA news tidbits to go over. A lot of NFL news. Training camps in full swing. Most teams completing their first week here, coming up this weekend. Um, and we also had a trade. And then we'll finish up with our fantasy running back rankings for this season. So let's get to it here. The NCAA. We're still talking about Oklahoma and Texas for the third
Yep.
straight show. um, so the SEC officially, unanimously, I should say, approved Oklahoma and Texas to join the conference. Um, that was after the two schools officially applied um, to join, and that should be happening July 1st, 2025. Now, there is a way that they can get out of the Big 12 earlier, but right now, how it is that both schools would have to pay around 75 to 80 million in order to get out of the Big 12 media rights deals.
I mean, that's a lot of money, especially for college. But I mean, I hate when things like this happen, where you still got to wait another 4 years for it to actually like go through and happen. Because now we're gonna be like, now we already know that it's going to happen, so now we just gotta wait. And like these last couple of years that the that the schools are in the Big 12. I mean, the I don't know if they're gonna actually try that hard, or if they're just kind of like uh, ride it out for the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, the other way that they can get out earlier, and the way that they're hoping it goes down so they can leave earlier, is that the Big 12 just essentially dissolves and all these other teams go somewhere else. Um, so
How likely is
that
that
they
to
then
actually
the
happen,
media
though?
rights would be void because I don't know. I mean, the thing is, we haven't heard anything about who the Big 12, if the Big 12 is trying to
Yeah.
recruit anyone, um, a UCF, um, but that coupled with the opposite, we haven't heard of any of the other schools in the conference what their plans are uh, to go elsewhere right now. So, and the Wi-Fi is wonderful. It is working. Yeah,
Got you back.
Yeah, so that's exactly what happened the other day in my meetings. So, um, which is great. It usually lasts a little bit longer whenever I get kicked off. So, but yeah, I don't know if you heard anything I said. So,
I mean, the last part I heard was about the other schools in the conference, what they're going to decide to do.
yeah, yeah. So that's the other thing is we haven't heard any plans for the other schools in the conference to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece of well, they're two pieces of news, but I think they couple together well. The NCAA also announced this week that they are not returning Reggie Bush's 2005 Heisman Trophy to him, regardless of what has transpired with the name, image, likeness regulations. So,
I mean, I get it because the rules were the rules when he was in college and all that. But at the same time, I mean, it's kind of like just one of those things. Like, um, it kind of reminds me of like with baseball, Pete Rose, who should be in the Hall of Fame, but he isn't because of his whole gambling scandal that he had. Reggie Bush, I feel like in most people's minds, he was the Heisman winner that year, even though it's technically not officially his.
all right, tell me about your Reggie Bush again.
Well, no, I was just saying it reminds his whole situation kind of reminds me of like Pete Rose with baseball because Pete Rose in everybody's mind he's in the Hall of Fame even though he's technically banned because of the whole gambling scandal. But I feel like it's the same with Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush's Heisman got taken away from him because of all that all that the scandal that he was involved with. But um, I feel like in most people's minds, he is still the deserving winner of that award that year.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I understand. I know that the they weren't allowed to accept endorsements back then. I mean, granted, that's not what he did. he he got his parents. USC got his parents a whole apartment, and they lived there like rent free for a whole month or whatever, a couple months. I don't know the whole story, but he got stuff based on his athletic ability, um, and not just like an endorsement from Chick-fil-A. So, but yeah, I still think it should be returned to him. I have, and I think that's the general public's opinion too.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why does it matter now? His ban actually just ended last year. or whatever. So I don't know. I agree with sort of like what Ricky Williams has been saying about marijuana in the NFL. Like states are legalizing it, so why should a player be penalized for getting arrested for it in a different state that's not legal? You know.
Yeah.
Like I said, the last piece of NCAA news goes along with the Reggie Bush thing and nil in general. So Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, the new starter this year, he has signed nil agreements over that total over $800,000, and he's been offered deals that are in excess of $1 million. And this kid hasn't even played a game. Has never started. He's played. He's never started a game though for Alabama.
Well, I feel like the only negative part about this whole endorsement thing is that I feel like it's really going to affect the recruiting process now, because like that he's a prime example of it. He hasn't even played a snap as the starter yet, but because he's the Alabama quarterback, he's getting like $1 million from this endorsement.
Yep.
Whereas if he was a quarterback for another team, like I don't even know, like BYU, let's just say, I doubt he would be getting this big of an endorsement right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes along with the super conference that the SEC will be in a couple years. That has recruiting kickbacks as well. So college football is just going to turn into, well, not college football, Division One FBS. It's going to just turn into a feeder system. It's minor league it, use it as the minor league, draft them while they're freshmen or whatever. All right, NFL news. So we did have one trade. This came as Aaron Rodgers was getting back to Green Bay. And Brian Gutekunst essentially said that this was because of Aaron that we got him. So the Packers, they traded the Texans their 2022 sixth round pick for wide receiver Randall Cobb. Comes back to Green Bay after a couple years in Houston. The Texans are also going to pay $3 million of his salary. I believe his salary is $8.25 million. So Packers will only be on a hook for $5.25 million of that.
Wait, what was the draft compensation for that?
But yeah, a 2022 sixth.
Okay, yeah, I don't know why I thought you said like a second. For some reason, I was like, that's way too high. But sixth makes a lot more sense. But I mean, Rodgers has been pleading for help for years. I mean, I guess this kind of counts as help, even though Randall Cobb's not nearly the receiver he used to be. But at least there's the familiarity between them already. So maybe his return to Green Bay will kind of rejuvenate him a little bit.
This is ridiculous.
We'll get through it.
Just want to let everyone know we won't have we will not have a recording of this show on Spotify. This show will not be recorded. And I can't even see Chris.
I can't see either, but I can hear you.
I cannot see Chris. That's cool.
Can you see me now?
Okay. Yes. Okay. So, like you were saying, Chris, about Randall Cobb, and you went away again. Anytime I get onto the share the screen page. There you are. Okay. I'm doing this on my phone because I don't have to be on Wi-Fi. Even though we won't have the freaking PowerPoint though. That's the issue.
Sure.
And like I said, we are not having a recording of this show. I should probably stop the. There we go. But yes, so Randall Cobb. Go, Chris.
I was just saying, like, Rodgers, obviously, that was one of the things that he's been like most vocal about, is that they haven't really given him any help over the last couple of years. And I mean, I guess you can classify this as help, even though Cobb is not anywhere near what he used to be. But I just think that it helps that there's the familiarity between them already. So there's no like chemistry that needs to be built or anything like that. So like I said, at least there's that aspect there. But I don't really know how much he really upgrades the receiving core.
Yeah. I mean, I just know Rodgers loves him. So that's
you know what would be kind of funny though? You know what would be kind of funny now is if they decide to cut him in the preseason.
Nah,
that'll
won't.
Really set Rodgers off.
Nah, they won't. Yeah, I think that's a good move. They appease Rodgers. They give him one guy he likes, anyways. I think it does help their receiver room, though. I think he's going to have a role in the slot where he plays well at, and definitely going to help mentor the younger receivers since he's the older guy in there. So, okay, the Browns, they hired former Lions GM Bob Quinn as a senior consultant to their football ops department. Now, that was an interesting move, I think. The Andrew Berry gets another person to bounce ideas off of, and a former GM, so he knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
The Madden 99 club here. So there are 5 players on it this year. That is Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce, Packers wide receiver Devontae Adams, Rams corner Jalen Ramsey, and Rams defensive tackle Aaron Donald.
Kind of unfair that 2 teams have 2 99 overall players, but I mean, I've been seeing those like top 10 of each position things coming out over the last couple of days, and I was kind of surprised at some of the ratings, but yeah, those 5 players I think do deserve to be the best in the game. I think maybe the only exception being, I don't know if Kelce should have deserved the perfect rating. I mean, I know he's the best at what he does, but still. But yeah, the other 4 I think deserve to be where they are.
Yeah, I agree. I like the list. You know, McCaffrey was on it last year. Obviously, at the injury, he wouldn't make it this year. I'm trying to think of who else would be close.
Well, Gilmore was on it last year too, I think, wasn't it? Or was that 2 years ago?
I think last year, yeah.
And he dropped down a little bit.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I can't really think of anyone else that would be like right there. Maybe some of the other pass rushers out there. TJ Watt should be I don't remember what his rating was, but he was like the number 1 linebacker or whatever.
Derrick Henry too. I think he was like a 96, something like that. So he was up there.
Yeah. I know I was disappointed about Minkah Fitzpatrick and where he was ranked on the safeties. Thought he was a little low. I think he was like a 86 or 87. I thought he would have been higher on the list of safeties. But okay. Some camp stuff here. So I said about Deshaun Watson showing up last show, and I wanted to correct something that I said that was wrong. Because I said about how, you know, if he was going to get fined for missing, you know, the Texans could just wipe those fines away. But that's actually not true. With the new CBA that came in last year, teams can't clear fines away for holdouts anymore. So, another guy that was a potential holdout, Eagles tight end Zach Ertz, he did report to camp. He's still not happy with his contract situation. Still wants a new deal, whether that be with Philly or somewhere else.
Buffalo.
So he's still on the field. He's still practicing. So who knows? And just give me a second. I'm going to try to get the PowerPoint here. We'll see if I can. But anyways, back to Patrick Mahomes. So he he bought another team. he is now a part owner of Sporting Kansas City, the MLS soccer team there in KC. So
seems like that's been a trend over the last couple of years. Not necessarily with current athletes, but a lot of former athletes have invested in sports teams. But yeah, Mahomes just adds to the list of athletes who have.
okay, so Chris, can you see this?
Yeah.
It is not very good, right? Yeah. So that doesn't really work. So we're gonna not do that. I thought it might work, but apparently it didn't translate well. Yeah, because Patrick Mahomes is also a part owner of the Kansas City Royals as well. So back to Aaron Rodgers here. His revised contract that they did with the Packers there in order to get him in the building, essentially. So couple details from that. His contract voids on the 7th day before, a week before the 2023 league year, and also before that league year, the franchise tag window closes 1 day before that 7th day. So he isn't taggable after the 2022 season. He's untaggable. And his cap numbers changed in the contract. So this year, his cap number is 27.57 million. And for next season, it is 46.14 million, making it very difficult for the Packers to keep him in 2022. So I know a lot of people were saying that now this sets up, well, I think it was kind of half and half. Some people are saying now it sets him up to be a free agent in 2022. That's what I believe. But there is another contingent that are saying, well, now this sets up for Rodgers to play 2 more seasons in Green Bay and then leave. Or the last part is that he could work things out with management and he plays the rest of his career with the Packers.
I mean, how much longer does he really have anyway?
Well, he's 35, I think, 36. No, he's 36.
I thought he was older than that. I thought he was like 39. Okay,
No.
so yeah, he still has a couple good years left, but yeah, I don't know whether it's 1 more year, 2 more years that he's in Green Bay. I don't see him finishing his career there, but we'll have to see in a couple of years.
The Saints just keep getting worse, Chris. Their wide receiver, Deontay Harris, he was arrested earlier this month, July 16th, I believe it was, in Maryland for allegedly driving under the influence. And usually that comes with a 2-game suspension for the NFL policy. So that could be another receiver that's gone to start the season.
Yeah, but I mean, at least it's only 2 games. So, I mean, they didn't even really put the suspension out yet, but like you said, that's the traditional, like, general thing for that kind of penalty. But I mean, I know that they weren't going to have Michael Thomas to start the season, but they still have Traquan Smith. They just signed Chris Hogan, and I mean, I can't even name who the rest of the depth chart is for the Saints right now because it's just that bad. But I don't really know.
Humphrey.
Yeah, I don't really know how big of an impact Harris would have had anyway.
Well, he's your starting punt returner at least.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I know he's good at that, but other people can do that too. So I'm not too upset about that. Plus, like I said, it's only 2 games, so
for sure. The Browns wide receiver OBJ, he passed his physical. He won't be on PUP to start camp here. He's been working out and going through it with Cleveland. Speaking of the PUP list, guys placed on it this week. The Patriots, they had offensive tackle Trent Brown and linebacker Kyle Van Noy. Washington football team, wide receiver Curtis Samuel. Packers left tackle David Bakhtiari. Chiefs offensive lineman Kyle Long. And then we already said these, at least 2 of these guys for the Jets. I don't think we said about Ashton Davis on Monday.
No.
Yeah, safety Ashton Davis for the Jets. But we did get updates about returns for him, Vinny Curry, and Quinnen Williams. Ashton Davis and Vinny Curry both expected to return by week 2. Quinnen Williams expected to be back for the opener.
All right, I'll take that.
That was per Robert Saleh. The COVID list, guys added. There were a bunch. I don't have the tweet in front of me that said the exact number of how many guys were placed on it this week. But here's a list of some guys, notable names that were on it. Rams rookie wide receiver Tutu Atwell. Ravens running back Gus Edwards and quarterback Lamar Jackson. Giants linebacker Blake Martinez. Jets offensive tackle George Fant. Bills offensive lineman Deion Dawkins. Colts corner TJ Carey. Corners TJ Carey and Xavier Rhodes. And defensive end Al-Qadim Muhammad. Falcons pass rusher Dante Fowler Jr. And then Washington football team wide receiver Curtis Samuel and defensive lineman Matt Ioannidis. Yes, Curtis Samuel is on the PUP and COVID list currently.
I was wondering about George Fant because I saw a tweet not too long before the show. He tweeted out in all caps saying, "I'm free," with a bunch of exclamation points. So I was like, wait a minute, did he just get released or something? I was so confused. And it didn't say it, like he didn't reply to his tweet saying anything about what he was talking about. So I had a feeling it might have had something to do with COVID though. And yeah, that's what it did.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure. A couple minor retirements that we had this week. The Bears tight end Jake Butt and Raiders running back Theo Riddick. He actually just retired today, like 30 minutes ago. But yeah, Jake Butt is just a shame for his career. I mean, he had so much potential coming out of Michigan. 3 ACL tears between Michigan and his stop with the Broncos. I don't recall if he was with anyone in between the Broncos and the Bears that I can think of.
I don't believe so.
So, yeah, short career for Jake Butt. Couldn't stay healthy. But yeah, Theo Riddick, I was surprised. I mean, he was so good for all those years in Detroit as their scat back. And once he left Detroit, he just never did much. So,
no, but I mean, I wonder if just his position on the depth chart had anything to do with it though, with the Raiders, because he was at least the third back. I don't know if there was anybody else ahead of him, but obviously Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake were the two starters, or starter and backup.
Jalen Richard as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even, I don't know if you'd count it, but Alec Ingold, fullback, another running back spot you have to account for on the roster.
Yeah. I mean, so that might have played a part into it too, is that he probably figured he wasn't going to make the roster anyway, or if he did, he wasn't going to actually play. So maybe he wanted to just get a jump start on that, but I don't know.
Yeah. One release here, this correlated with Aaron Rodgers coming back. The Packers, they released quarterback Blake Bortles. So they will move forward with Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love.
Damn, I was kind of hoping for the Blake Bortles show in Green Bay, but I swear to God, if the Jets pick him up now as their veteran backup, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah. Actually, there was another cut as well. The Giants, they cut tight end Kelvin Benjamin. This is a funny one though. They cut him because he was caught on surveillance video stealing food from the facility to take home. And apparently Dave Gettleman and Joe Judge like chased him out of the building or something like that.
I didn't hear that part, but that's just, there's no words for that.
I mean, I don't understand why it was a big deal taking food. I mean,
yeah, I don't know the whole operation there with the Giants or any NFL team really, for that matter.
Yeah.
But,
I guess I don't know if it's like COVID thing or I don't know. Whatever. Kelvin Benjamin's a free agent though.
Probably going to stay that way too.
The Dolphins had a couple things going on with them. So their all-star corner, Xavier Howard, has requested a trade.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this tweet that I had. I might have deleted it though. Yeah, I did. But there was like a million teams that had enough cap space to extend or trade for Xavier Howard. Couple things on him. He is under contract through 2024 for $49.3 million. Only 28 still, in the prime of his career. And he also led the NFL in interceptions 2 of the last 3 seasons, in 2018 with 7 and 2020 with 10.
Yeah, I mean, he's been one of the best and most underrated corners, I think, over the last couple of years. Because, I mean, when you have a conversation with people about who the best cornerbacks in the league are, they bring up people like Jalen Ramsey and Stephon Gilmore and like other guys like that. But Xavier Howard is kind of mentioned at the end of the sentence as kind of like the afterthought guy. But like you just kind of mentioned, he's been one of the best, if not the best, over the last few years. So yeah, and you said too, there's so many teams that have the cap space for him, but I think the problem would be not the cap space, but the draft capital to trade for a guy like that, because like you said, he's in the prime of his career. He's got 3-4 years left on his deal, so he's a controllable player with a decent contract, so he's going to cost a lot. And I mean, I don't know, I can't think of teams off the top of my head what their like draft capital is over the next couple of years. The only one I do know can't afford him would be a team like the Rams, because they don't have any first round picks for the next like 4 years. So
yeah, and this kind of made me mad when I saw that he requested a trade, because last year when the Eagles were looking at corners. And they obviously got Darius Slay eventually from Detroit. But Xavier Howard was in the conversation for trades for the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
And now he wants out. I'm like, oh my God, dude. Why couldn't he want it out last year? We could have had him. And they were in a lot better financial state last year than they were this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish he wasn't in the Jets division right now, because I mean it's not unheard of for interdivision trades, but I feel like for a guy like that, there's no shot for the Jets to get him.
Chris, it only takes 3 first-round picks.
I'd give up one of the first-round picks from next year and maybe a couple in the future.
That's what I would charge a division rival. I would up that price. If you want him to stay in the division, you got to pay a premium.
Yep.
So the other thing going on with the Dolphins, possibly, I don't know if this was to make money for Xavier Howard or not, but they restructured linebacker Bernard McKinney. He had 3 years left on his deal for worth $27.5 million, $7.75 million salary in 2021. That got decreased to $3 million in 2021, along with $200,000 in playtime incentives, and he will now be a free agent in 2022. So, guy they traded for this offseason. Yeah. So, I don't know if that means their younger linebackers are doing better than him in camp. I mean, they've only had a couple days so far. So it's like,
yeah, I don't know. That's a weird move, but like you said, we'll have to see what exactly they were thinking, whether it was something to do with one of the other players or if it was something to do with him himself.
Yeah. The guy that finally got paid and deserved it. Washington football team, they got another extension done, this time with tight end Logan Thomas. 3 years, $24 million, $10.3 million guaranteed. He is now the 7th highest paid tight end. Don't ask me who the top 6 are. I know it's Kelsey and Kittle, and I couldn't tell you. Ertz is probably up there as well. The other 3, I'm not so sure about.
Gronk, is he one of the most highest paid?
Probably. I believe he's probably making 10 plus. So I don't, and Darren Waller hasn't gotten paid yet. So
Mark Andrews, did he get paid yet?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. I don't know, but that would be interesting to see that list though, because it's kind of funny that he's the 7th highest paid. Like normally you hear that he's like the highest paid or like 2nd highest paid, but then 7th highest paid. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's right where he should be, but I don't know.
Well, here we go. Average per year. George Kittle, number 1. Travis Kelce, 2. Hunter Henry, 3. His teammate, Jonnu Smith, is 4. Austin Hooper is 5.
Forgot about that.
And Ertz would make 6. And technically, I don't know, because his contract is technically $8 million per year. So technically, he would be the 8th highest paid tight end if you go by average per year. And the 7th tight end is interesting because it's a rookie.
Oh, is it Kyle Pitts?
Yeah. $8,227,624 per season. 4 years, 32.9-ish million. Per over the cap. Surprised they don't have the Logan Thomas contract in yet. That's interesting. But anyways, a couple of other free agent signings going on here. The Colts, they signed former Vikings corner Holton Hill to a 1-year deal. That's going to help out their depth, especially with Xavier Rhodes being on COVID list right now, and TJ Carey, 2 corners there. The Cowboys, they finally signed former Colts first-round pick safety Malik Hooker, helping their safety depth that has badly needed it in recent years. The Packers, they signed offensive tackle Dennis Kelly. I believe he last played with the Titans last year.
Yeah.
Very solid swing tackle. And again, it's going to help them out with Bakhtiari being on the PUP list right now. The final free agency signing here on NFL News, Eagles, they signed former Raiders second rounder safety Obi Melifonwu. So kicking the tires on him after he was with New England last year. Injuries. This is the time of year for that, Chris. Injuries.
And there's a familiar name in the injury category today.
Well, we're not starting off with him. He'll be in a couple lines, but first off, we'll start with his former team, the Eagles. And well, this is a former face or a familiar face of the injury report too. Guard Brandon Brooks. He injured his hamstring on like the first day of camp or the second day. The man hasn't played. I was talking to another Eagles fan the last couple of days, and we were talking about just camp and how the roster is going to do and whatever. And we were talking about the line, Brandon Brooks. I was like, the man hasn't played since 2018, since they lost to the Saints in the 2019 playoffs. He hasn't played. So,
but what was the injury though this time? Is it going to keep him out?
Okay. The hammy. So, depending on, I don't know what the grade of it is, but could be out. Bad, could be out like maybe the first preseason game. I don't know. I mean, that's like 2 weeks away, so probably
knowing him and his history though, he could be out for the season just because his hamstring hurts.
Probably. Another guard in the division. This one's more serious. I haven't heard any updates on it, but Giants guard Shane Lemieux, starting left guard. He was carted off yesterday at Giants practice. I haven't heard any updates on it, so I'm not sure what happened to him. But
that line is already bad enough. Now that they lost another starter, that's a big blow to them. Even though I didn't even know who that guy was, but just because he's a starter, I think that just makes their line even worse.
Yeah, 2019 draft pick. I can't recall what round. It was 5th or 6th, I believe, out of Oregon. All right, let's get to the quarterback injuries. Staying in division in the NFC East, Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. He hurt himself again. So he suffered a shoulder strain, a latissimus injury, and he's day-to-day. I'm not sure where that muscle is. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. So, but yeah, it's a shoulder injury in his throwing shoulder.
That probably makes it worse.
Oh, that might be what I have. It's like it's a muscle that connects. The biggest part of the muscle is like in your back, like upper back before you get to the shoulder blade, and it like connects out to your radius. Or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, that could probably potentially turn into something serious, but as long as he stays off of it for a couple days, I think he'll be fine. I think we got to worry about the ankle more than anything because obviously that was the injury that occurred last year. So as long as that doesn't re-injure itself or whatever, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah. All right, now Carson Wentz. So he is out indefinitely right now with a foot injury. He could have surgery, they said. They're still waiting to get tests back. And if he gets surgery, he'll miss the start of the season. Right now, they said he's definitely out the rest of the preseason. And like I said, could be out to start the season. So,
I mean, was he really going to play that much in the preseason anyway?
probably. I mean, he needed to get the chemistry down with his receivers in game formats. And also, he knows the system, but I don't know, if Frank Reich put any extra stuff in since he's been in Indianapolis or not, or changed some lingos. I don't know. But yeah, right now it's Jacob Eason as the starter, second year, 4th round pick last season. And his backup is rookie 6th round pick, Sam Ehlinger out of Texas. So,
I mean, we've seen this kind of happen before. I think the most notable, most recent example being the Cowboys with Dak Prescott, him coming in after the Romo injury and kind of just stealing away the job. Not really saying that's going to happen here with Jacob Eason. But, I mean, there's potential there. Obviously, there's a reason why they drafted him last year, and there's a reason why he was the backup coming into the season because they believe in him. They believe that he could actually do it. Because, I mean, you got to think that the Colts have had that discussion knowing that Carson Wentz is going to get injured at some point this season because he's Carson Wentz. So they had to have a discussion if they think that Eason is a good enough backup to carry them while he's out. And I think this clearly shows that they think that Eason can do it.
Yeah, I think it was sort of funny for me being an Eagles fan to see Carson, get injured again before the season even started. Not that I want him to get injured, but it's also bad. It is bad for Eagles fans to see Carson get injured. If you want that 1st round pick, guys, you want Carson to get back on the field as quick as possible. Reminder, the conditions of that trade to make it a 1st round pick, he needs to play 75% of these snaps in the season, or he needs to play 70% of the snaps, and the Colts need to make the playoffs.
I mean, I don't think the playoffs are going to be the issue. I think it's going to be his playing time that's going to be the issue. And, I mean, if he gets the surgery, I know you said he missed the start of the season, but I wonder how many games that would be.
I would think it would only be like 2, maybe. Because that would be 6 weeks that he would have to get back.
Yeah. I feel so bad for him, though, because his career has been derailed by injuries. He keeps getting injured again and again. He even lost his job to his backup in Philly twice because Nick Foles took over and took them to the Super Bowl. And then there's questions of whether or not he was even going to be the starter the next season. Then they drafted Hurts, benched Wentz last year, and now he gets hurt again in his chance in Indy. So this is almost, I'm not going to say it's as bad because at least he has the Super Bowl ring and all that, but it's almost as bad as Andrew Luck's situation and how he kind of got derailed by injuries.
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny that you said Nick Foles because, it might be an option now if they want a veteran to be there while Carson is rehabbing.
I think it all depends on Wentz and his and like what happens with him, whether he gets the surgery and how long the recovery time is. Because if it is only like two games in the regular season, I don't think they would do that.
Yeah. Blake Bortles now also available, like we said.
That'd probably be a better option because he's cheaper.
But yeah, from my experience, just seeing players' injuries, if surgery is on the table and it's not going to make you miss the season, you should have surgery.
Yeah.
It's better in the long run. Like the biggest thing I think about is Deshaun Jackson last year. He got hurt in week 2 against the Falcons. Didn't have surgery. Tried to come back like 8 weeks later from a core muscle injury. Got hurt again the first game he came back. And he even said, like, I would have had surgery if it would have been an option, but I guess they told him it wasn't. That's the crappy Eagles training staff. So, but anyways, yeah, it's not going well for the Colts right now. Them, just like the Saints. Saints are having injury issues. The Colts are having them too. It's not just Carson Wentz though. Their starting center, Ryan Kelly, he's out at least 2 weeks with a hyperextended elbow. And then also linebacker Darius Leonard hasn't been practicing. He's been dealing with an ankle injury. So they're big guys are having issues. So I think Carson might have brung the trainers over from Philly with them. Or he just brought the injury luck with him, which if you did, Carson, thank you. Thank you for getting it away from the Eagles.
I mean, clearly it still didn't help Brandon Brooks, though.
Well, he's got his own injury issues. All right. One more injury here. Niners defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw, second year with San Fran. He had a slight setback with his knee after he had surgery last season. So let's see how long it takes until Kinlaw can get back on the field for San Francisco. Workouts. The Niners, they worked out free agent corner Drake Kirkpatrick, most recently with the Cardinals last year. Would help the non-re-signing of Richard Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
The Texans, I
was just going to say, I mean, I've never been a big Drake Kirkpatrick fan, but yeah, I mean, I guess anything would help their secondary right now.
The Texans, they worked out center Austin Reiter. He also, why am I blanking right when I'm trying to say who he also worked out with? We said about it a couple shows ago. I don't remember.
Oh,
the Bengals. I believe it was. But yeah, just sign him. Sign him, Nick. You're signing everyone else, so just go ahead. Your Jets, Chris. They worked out tight end Jordan Matthews this week. So.
Wait, tight end? You mean the former wide receiver?
Yeah, he's added weight and transitioned to tight end just like Kelvin Benjamin did.
I mean, but he hasn't really. I mean, again, he changed positions, but he's one of those guys that, similar to Nick Foles, he hasn't had success anywhere else but in Philly when he was with the Eagles. So, yeah. But the Jets could use it. Pretty much anybody they can get at the tight end position now because they're kind of lacking there. So, I mean, if the workout goes well and they decide to sign him, I'm all for it.
Yeah. The Bears, they worked out a group of wide receivers this week. That included Josh Doxson. Last time I know he was on a team was the Vikings. But, yeah, I mean, they have spots open now with Anthony Miller to Houston. So the Giants, they worked out linebacker Todd Davis and also hosted wide receiver Cody Core and running back Alfred Morris for visits. Not sure about the Morris thing. Cody Core, I could see being signed. He's a pretty good special teams player. Todd Davis, I'm not sure either. I'm not sure where he's been.
I don't know.
But yeah, Alfred Morris, I highly doubt gets signed, considering they have they drafted Gary Brightwell to be a backup for Saquon, and they also have
Devin Booker,
Devontae Booker.
Yeah, Devin Booker's on the Suns.
I'm sure he can play.
Yeah. Well, if Alfred Morris really wants a job, I mean, he seems to really like that NFC East because he's been on he was on the Redskins when they were the Redskins and the Cowboys. But there's a team out west that probably needs some running back help. If you can get a workout with them, with the Rams.
Yeah, I don't know. And then the last one here, the Chargers, they hosted quarterback KJ Costello on a visit, just seeing about possible camp arms, possible practice squad guys. So that is all the NFL news. Got through that in an hour, which is good with 5 million kickoffs of the computer. So that's why we're on our phone. That's why I'm on my phone. I think you're on your phone too, right? Yeah.
Yep.
No PowerPoint, unfortunately. So we don't have good visuals. I apologize. It's not my fault. Not my Wi-Fi. It's my parents' Wi-Fi. But the next couple shows I do at home, we'll do them in the office. So I'm literally sitting right next to the Wi-Fi. All right. But anyways, let's go over our top 30 fantasy running backs here. So let's start off like the PowerPoint had here. We will do 30 through 21, just not talking too much about them in depth. But I guess I will go first. So my number 30 is Jets rookie running back Michael Carter. 29 is Jags rookie Travis Etienne. 28, Ronald Jones. 27, Leonard Fournette. 26, Raheem Mostert. 25 is Kareem Hunt. 24 is Myles Gaskin for the Dolphins. Chase Edmonds for the Cardinals comes in at 23. Mike Davis with the Falcons is 22. And then new Rams starter Darrell Henderson Jr. is my 21st. Was tough. I put the two Tampa running backs together. I thought they were very similar in fantasy status. Mostert I almost left off, but it was close. And then I won't talk too much about Kareem. I'll let you, and you have him way up on your list.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Darrell Henderson. I think I like Darrell Henderson really the most out of the 30 through 21 guys.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of the same guys there. just in slightly different positions. But okay, so my 30 through 21 here. Number 30, I have Latavius Murray. It kind of was tough to decide who I wanted to have as the last guy on my list there. And there could be a number of guys there at that spot, but I just figured he has the best shot at getting random points throughout the games, because he is, I feel like, their short yardage kind of goal line guy. So he kind of takes some of those touchdowns away from Kamara. So that's why I put him there. Then 29, I had Devin Singletary. 28, I got DeAndre Swift. And for Swift, I kind of just put him there because of the fact that his quarterback is now Jared Goff. So I don't know how good of a season he'll actually have. 27, I had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, mostly because of his inconsistent season. Obviously, he could be much higher than that, or if he's as inconsistent as he was. Number 26, I have Melvin Gordon. I believe he's still the starter. If he's not, I'm not 100% sure, but they also just drafted Javonte Williams out of UNC. So he's going to have to share a lot of carries there. And then my number 25, you also had on your list here, is Henderson with the Rams. I put him low because of I think that they're going to eventually sign somebody else. But if he turns out to be the sole back there, or the one that carries the ball for the most part, I think he'll be a lot higher than that. Number 24, I have James Robinson with the Jags. I put him very low on the list compared to what he was at last year because of Travis Etienne. And then 23, I have Myles Gaskin. He's in a similar spot for you. I just think that Gaskin will be the workhorse there in Miami. And then number 22, I had Chase Edmonds. I think that he'll get a good, solid amount of carries there, even with James Conner being there. And then my number 21 is Ronald Jones, and I have him there because he's on Tampa Bay. And obviously, Tom Brady loves to throw to the running backs and stuff, even though he's not the pass catcher there, but he's essentially the number one running back there for Tampa Bay. So that was the only Tampa Bay running back I had on my list.
Yeah, I thought as far as the Tampa ones go, I liked Fournette better. Fournette was a bigger presence in the playoffs and down the stretch, I thought, for the Bucs. The issue with the Bucs is that they also brought in Gio Bernard this offseason, so I think that's going to limit the amount of catches that both will get. So definitely probably staying away from them. I think if I had to draft one as one of my backups, it would be Fournette, though. I've never really been a big Rojo guy.
No, the only reason I left Fournette off my list completely, though, is because of what you said. He really didn't do anything throughout the regular season until towards the end and into the playoffs. Then he turned everything on. So I'm just worried that that's going to be the case again, because if he explodes in the playoffs again, then that doesn't affect the fantasy season. So he's really not a good fantasy running back.
Yeah, I wrote down for my 30 through 21 their rank last year and their rank projected this year. So Michael Carter, his last season at UNC last year would have put him as running back 8, scoring 242.2 points. He is RB 42 right now in ESPN's projections. Travis Etienne, he would have been RB 4 last year, scoring 294.2. That came with, I believe, 16 rushing touchdowns, so that was a big factor there. He is projected as RB24. Ronald Jones, he finished last year as RB20, is currently RB41 on the projections. Leonard Fournette, he finished RB35, is projected as RB33. Raheem Mostert, RB48, finished last year, injuries. He is projected as RB34. Kareem Hunt finished as RB10 last year. He is currently projected as RB26, though, right around where I have. Myles Gaskin finished as RB28. He is projected as RB21 right now. Chase Edmonds, he finished RB25, is projected as RB23, right on the dot with where I have him. Mike Davis, transitioning to the Falcons, he finished RB12 last year in an expanded role without McCaffrey. Currently listed as RB25. And then Darrell Henderson finished as RB36 and is RB20 right now.
So we were pretty spot on with some of them.
Yeah, that's just like the top half of the bottom 10. That was Okay, my number 20 is Las Vegas Raiders running back Josh Jacobs. So, 15 games last year, finished as RB8. With the addition of Kenyon Drake, I just could not put him any higher than 20. I thought 20 was even a pretty good spot for him. I mean, he's going to finish higher than that, I do think. But ESPN is in about the same mindset that I am, though. They have him as projected as RB18 right now. His rushing stats, his statistics look very similar, actually, to last season. They only have him losing about 4 points from last year, but dropping 10 spots because everyone else went up in projections. So, yeah. The Kenyon Drake thing, that was the biggest issue for me with Jacobs.
Fair.
All right, Chris, your number 20 is Mike Davis.
Yeah, I know he was in your bottom third there, but I just think that Mike Davis, I mean, he's only listed as number 20 for me, so he's not that high on my list, obviously, but just the fact that he's now the bona fide starter, I think, even though he's on the Falcons, who are a pass-first team, but like you had said when we had talked about the quarterbacks last week, they now have a coach that likes to run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think that Mike Davis can build on what he did last year in Carolina. And I think that he'll have a pretty solid season there in Atlanta, especially because of the way that their offense is set up. Teams aren't going to go for the running back. They're going to focus on the receivers more than anything. So I think that that'll open up a lot of holes for him.
Yeah, listed. He finished, like I said, RB12 last year, RB25 right now. Expected to go up in yardage, obviously, a lot of carries. Decrease in receptions, a lot of receptions lost, actually. His projected is down by 20. He caught a lot of balls from Teddy Bridgewater last year, 59 to be exact.
Well, that's because that's what Bridgewater likes to do. He likes the short passes, and that's not Matt Ryan's game. But
they also have Cordell Patterson at running back, as well as Ito Smith, who I think would take some of the running, the catching out. All right, your 19 is J.K. Dobbins with the Ravens.
Yeah. So I know the Ravens are a run first team, obviously. But I'm not the biggest J.K. Dobbins fan. Even though he is the starter, and like I said, they're a run first team, but majority of their running comes from their quarterback with Lamar Jackson. And he also still has Gus Edwards behind him. And there's a lot of factors. And also, I think that even though the Ravens are a run first team, I just think that their schedule sets them up for a lot of high scoring affairs where they're going to have to throw the ball a lot more. And so that's going to take away from his touches as well. But I do see a scenario where he does have a bigger season, but I just, based on all those factors, though, I think that's why I have him there at 19, kind of low on my list.
Yeah, I'll talk about him a lot later. My number 19 is Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the Chiefs. 13 games last year in his rookie season. When you look at the overall season, it wasn't terrible. 803 yards, 4.4 per, 4 touchdowns. That was an issue, was touchdowns on the ground. Only caught 36 for 3 yards under 300, 1 receiving touchdown. Finished as RB22 last year, projected as RB14 this year. They do have an upgraded offensive line, which I think could help. And they do, like I said, with Mahomes, they have those like 2 games every year that they just run the ball 35, 40 times and they win. But yeah, he's expected to get a big uptick in receptions this year, going from 36 to 52 and about 100 more yards receiving. So the rushing statistics up a little bit, but that's expected with the 17th game. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think he can do that, but that's why I had him so low on my list at number 27, because he was just so inconsistent last year. So I couldn't put him any higher than that right now. But yeah, I can definitely see him being a starting caliber running back for fantasy.
The good thing about him too in fantasy this year, no Le'Veon, no Damian Williams. Darrell Williams is the backup this year. So not as much competition for snaps.
Mm-hmm.
My number 18, and actually both of our number 18, it was interesting. We only had 2, I believe it was 2 on the whole 30. We had 2 that were the same. And number 18 was one of them. Miles Sanders with the Eagles only had 12 games last year in his sophomore season, or his second year in the league. But RB23 on a really bad offense. I think what stood out to me was the receptions. The receiving statistics weren't good. Only 28 for 197. Didn't have a receiving touchdowns. Only 6 rushing touchdowns as well. But that was because Boston Scott's still there. So yeah. I don't think he's going to get that many, but he is projected. I do like his projection though. RB16, over a little bit over 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns on the ground. Big uptick in receptions, up to 42 with 341 yards receiving. About a 70-point increase in fantasy points from last year.
That's also with 5 extra games there, because like you said, he only played 12 this past season. Yeah. Now if he stays healthy, he should play all 17, unless for whatever reason they don't have to play him in the 17th game. But I highly doubt that. But yeah, I put him here at 18. Well, he is the number 1 running back for Philly. But like you said, there's Boston Scott there. They also have Kerryon Johnson. They have the guy they just drafted. I can't think of his name.
Kenneth Gainwell.
Yes. And they have
Jordan Howard.
Jordan Howard, thank you. And so there's a lot of guys there. Obviously, I don't think all of them are going to make the team. But for the ones that do, I feel like they're all going to get involved in the offense, which is going to take away from Sanders' production a little bit. And also I put him at 18 down here because he only played 12 games last year. So there's that like asterisk with the injury bug that bit him last year. So, but if he does play a full season, I do expect him to have a solid season. And those numbers, I mean, you said they projected him at what, 16, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's RB2 numbers, which that's fine by me.
Yeah. I definitely do think he's going to have a good season. Like I said, with Jalen Hurts being the quarterback, and we saw how I had him listed at QB 12 in my fantasy rankings on Monday, the read option stuff is going to work. The RPOs are going to be there. So I think that style of offense will definitely help any running back, let alone Miles Sanders. All right, your 17 is Chris Carson.
Yeah. So I have Carson here at 17 for a few reasons, but mainly the fact that he's been hurt. So we don't really know if he's going to be able to play the full season, like if he gets hurt again, all that other stuff. And also because of how bad the Seahawks offensive line is. So, I mean, obviously we both think very highly of Russell Wilson, despite that offensive line. But Russell Wilson has shown that he can be Russell Wilson even with that offensive line. Carson, though, he has shown flashes, but obviously with the injuries and all that, he hasn't really been able to get on the field and show that he could be the running back that I think he can be. But I think if he can stay fully healthy this year and stay on the field and actually be a part of the offense, I think he can produce. And I mean, as I have him here, he's the 5th RB2 on my list. So I think that's right where he could be.
Yeah, you and ESPN are right in sync at RB17 projection. I'll talk about him in just a sec. But before I do that, I'm going to talk about my RB17. That is DeAndre Swift with the Lions. 13 games last year in his rookie season. 8 touchdowns. I really liked that. I have him on my dynasty team. Wasn't the greatest. I mean, he had competition with Kerryon being there as well. Has competition once again with Jamal Williams. So I don't think that's as big of a factor. I think they're going to give DeAndre the lead back usage. So probably around 20 carries per game, 25 touches per game probably, which ESPN thinks the same, having him projected as RB15. Not the rushing numbers I would like. 188 carries. I would like to be over 200 if could. And only 811 yards with 6 rushing touchdowns. I think he can do better than that. But like I said, it depends on Jamal Williams, how many carries he gets and whatnot. I do, however, like the receptions. 66 up from 46 last year. A little under 500 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns projected. So hopefully DeAndre can fill my Zeke Elliott issue, which we'll see where we have Zeke Elliott ranked on each of our lists. But
yeah, you and ESPN both have Swift higher than me, like way higher. I had him at my number 28, but I like him as a player, but I just think he's in a bad situation. Obviously, he is the number 1 back and all that, and like you said, he doesn't have much competition, but he's on Detroit, who they don't really have a great offense all around. They have Jared Goff at quarterback, and they have who's like I don't even know what their wide receiver depth chart looks like. Like I don't even know who the number one is there for them right now.
It'd be Tyrell Williams, most likely.
So, I mean, yeah, I don't believe in that offense, and I don't believe in that defense either. So, I feel like they're going to be in a lot of playing catch up and stuff. So, I just think that just based on the situations that they'll be in, that'll take away from a lot of his carries.
The one thing that they do have is 2 quality tackles in Taylor Decker and Tanae Sewell. So if they don't have anything, they have that, and that's fine if they want to play catch up. If Jared Goff wants to play dump down all day to DeAndre, that's fine. I'll take that point, and I'll take whatever yards he can get.
Fair.
All right, now my number 16 is Chris Carson. So one spot above you. I love Chris Carson. I've always been a fan. Has churned out a great career as a former 7th round pick. But RB19 last year, finished only playing 12 games. Has to stay on the field. That's one of his issues, as well as we know fumbling is an issue as well. ESPN has him projected 17, like I said. And I mean, I believe that he can get the statistics because they have over 1,000 yards. He's done that before. He's been a 1,000-yard rusher before. 8 rushing touchdowns as well. There's not as much competition. There still is. You still have Rashad Penny, Travis Homer. There's another guy that I can't. What's the other guy?
Can't think of it.
Because Alex Collins isn't there anymore. But so Jarrett Stidham underwent successful shoulder surgery, or successful back surgery, I should say. 12 weeks for Patriots quarterback Jarrett Stidham. They also, an update on Carson Wentz, they said that they're waiting on the doctor to look at the scans. They're not sure. They said it's not season ending though, which, that's good anyways, I guess. I'm rushing to bet. Well, I'm rushing to bet the under on the Colts win total. That's what I want to do.
What was it set at? Do you know?
I believe it was 10.5 last time I knew. I don't know where it is right now. I'd have to look.
I still think I'd bet the under, even with Carson Wentz under center. I think they get 10 wins.
This is true. Chris, your Jets are set at 6 right now.
I would take that for this year.
Over. Over under, that's the thing.
7 maybe. I think they could get 7.
All right. Well, back to Chris Carson anyways. Yeah, the Seahawks continually say the Colts over under set at 10, just saying. Right at 10. But anyways, yeah, Chris Carson, the Seahawks continually say that they want to run the ball, and he's had successful fantasy seasons in the past. So I think 16th, 17th area, that's fine. A good, solid RB2. As long as he stays on the field.
Yeah. That was my biggest issue with him.
And doesn't get benched for fumbling.
Yeah. So my number 16 was Cincinnati running back Joe Mixon. I've never been a Joe Mixon fan at all. Obviously, he's had his share of issues in the past. But I think with the revamped offense that is Cincinnati, with Joe Burrow coming back, Jamar Chase joining the team, and another year under the other receivers' belts and all that. Even though their offensive line is still somewhat suspect, I just think that Joe Mixon can have a decent season there, especially with Gio Bernard not being there anymore. They did draft, I believe it was Chris Evans they drafted.
Yes.
But I don't really see him being too much of a factor. But yeah, I just think Joe Mixon, and I think it helps that he goes out and catches the ball a lot too. So yeah, I just think that even though they are in a tough division, having to play the Steelers and Ravens 4 times, and even the Browns too. So those 6 games are going to be tough, but outside of that, they have the 4th place schedule and all that. So they, I think that Mixon can put together a solid season if he could stay on the field and stay in that offense.
Yeah, it's funny if we would have the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint looks really funny because it goes Mixon, Najee Harris, Mixon, Najee Harris. I have them both listed one spot above you. But yeah, I'll talk about Mixon. You go, Najee Harris. You're 15.
Well, yeah. My 15 is Najee Harris. Do I think he'll have a better season? Probably. I think he can be a starting running back 1 potentially. But you know how I am with rookies. I couldn't put him any higher than 15 for the most part because he's a rookie. But I think that in that offense with the Steelers, I mean, there's a reason he was the first running back off the board. He was one of the best coming out of college. And like I said, in that offense, Roethlisberger is probably not going to throw as much as he used to. So he's going to want to hand it off a lot. And Harris in my opinion, is the best running back that they've had in probably at least a decade. And probably maybe even longer than that. I can't think of all the Steelers running backs. You probably could better than me, but yeah, I think that Harris is definitely in for a solid rookie season, potentially offensive rookie of the year. And I mean, with the defense that they have, he's going to get a lot more running opportunities, I think, because they're going to be in closer games. And if the offense scores a lot, they're going to be running the ball a lot more, and he's going to get those garbage time points.
Yeah. Well, I have Joe Mixon at 15. 6 games last year. Did okay. 6 games to get 99.6 fantasy points. Finished as RB49. The projections look great. Over 1,000 yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, almost 50 receptions, about 350 receiving yards, up over 240 fantasy points, and RB13 sounds pretty good to me, and an improved Bengals offense. So. Yeah. 14, like I said, I have Harris and Mixon one spot above you each. So Najee Harris. This is ridiculous. You should hear his calculations. So in 13 games at Alabama last season, 1,466 rushing yards, 26 rushing touchdowns, 43 receptions, 425 yards, and 4 touchdowns, for a grand total of 412.1 fantasy points. That gets you the RB1 from last year. And the number one overall player as well, beating out Josh Allen by about almost 20 points. Yeah. 396 was Josh Allen. So, yeah. The 26 touchdowns are really what did it on the ground. 30 touchdowns total. That's a LT.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. I was like, I wonder how many fantasy points he had that season. Like, would Harris have beaten that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But rookie season projections, I like them. Listed as RB12 right now. 1,054 yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. Think that's very doable. And then 50 catches as well to go along with 2 touchdowns, 378 receiving yards, 245 fantasy points. I'm telling you, the Steelers are going to run the ball this year. Despite their offensive line, it's not the greatest. They're trying to rebuild it on the fly. But I think what they're not good at necessarily is pass protection. I think running the ball should not be an issue. They have a lot of big hog mollies up there that like to run the ball. So I think pass protection might be an issue, but the Steelers are also getting into more under the center stuff, I heard, this year under Matt Canada. So that will help Harris with the running game and also the play action game as well. And Derek Watt might become a bigger factor this season. All right, Antonio Gibson for your 14, Chris.
Yeah, so Antonio Gibson has become one of my favorite running backs in the entire league. I've already said in the past that I decided to use him as my keeper in our keeper league over Saquon and Amari Cooper and other guys like that. But I just think that Antonio Gibson cashed in a great season last year, and he's poised for an even better season this year because now I just think that he's the clear number one starter now. He's got, I don't know if you could say better quarterback because he did play with Alex Smith last year, but Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think he likes his running backs. So Antonio Gibson will get plenty of touches, whether that's on the ground or in the air. And he'll get those short yardage points and stuff. So I just think that in that offense and on that team in Washington, I think that Antonio Gibson is poised for a big season. And obviously, I have him at 14, so that wouldn't put him in the starter category necessarily, at least not RB1, but he's one of the top RB2s on my list right now.
Yeah, speaking of Washington, Chris, before you go to your 13, how about this baseball parlay for tonight? Washington Nationals -1.5 over the Cubbies. Reds money line against the Mets. Blue Jays money line. I forget who they're playing. And White Sox money line. Jays are playing the Royals. White Sox against the Guardians.
Yeah, so I think those two are wins. I'm kind of surprised that the Nationals are favored in that one, even though it is against the Cubs. But the Nationals also traded away a bunch of players. So that one's a tough game to pick. And then the other one was the Reds money line against the Mets. That's also a risky pick.
Yeah. I think I like it. I don't know. We'll see. I think we might roll with it. So, yeah, not much success for the Mets hitters against Sonny Gray.
Mm-hmm.
And Carrasco, this is his first start or something like that for the Mets. So
Oh yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, go ahead. Zeke is your number 13. Yeah. Lucky 13 for
Zeke. Yeah, so Zeke, he's had to fall from grace for the most part. He used to be in talks to be the number one pick and all that, but he's just shown such a decline over the last couple of years. I still think he's a useful running back. I just don't know if he's an RB1 anymore, which is why I have him as my number one RB2 here. But also, it's just the type of offense that they seem to have become in Dallas. They're no longer the run first and play action and all that, because they have Cooper, they have Gallup, they have CeeDee Lamb. They have probably the best trio of wide receivers in the league. And especially with the return of Dak Prescott, if he could stay on the field and not get injured with his shoulder or his ankle or whatever else he's going to get injured with. Even though Zeke and Dak have that chemistry going that they've had their whole career pretty much, I just think that Dak's going to air it out a lot. And especially with the Cowboys, the way their defense is, that defense is going to let up a lot of points, causing the Cowboys to have to throw more. And not to mention, too, with Zeke, he has his backup with Tony Pollard there, who is a very capable running back in himself. So I think he'll take a few carries away from Zeke as well. So
don't steal my sleeper talk.
I do think that Zeke still has potential to be a good running back, but I just think there's a lot of factors against him, which is why I have him there at number 13.
Yep, I will talk about Zeke much later. My number 13 is David Montgomery for the Bears. Finished the season fantastically down the stretch. Played in 15 games, 1,070 yards, 8 touchdowns, RB4 finished last year. Just ridiculous production in the fantasy playoffs, and probably should have won me a fantasy championship, but it didn't. 54 receptions last year. That was due in part to Tariq Cohen's absence, which talk about him at the end of the show. But the projections, like some of these guys, are very similar. Like I mentioned, the receptions are projected to go down because Cohen is back. So, but not that much. I mean, he still has 42 receptions, 333, and a touchdown. So it's not bad. Projected as RB19, really low on ESPN right now. So I think people will overdraft him, though, but you'll talk about it more.
Yeah, I'll talk about it in a few minutes.
Number 12 for me is a guy you had a lot lower, J.K. Dobbins. ESPN has him lower, too. That's fine. Projected as RB22, finished as RB24 last year. But that wasn't starting the whole season. He played in 15 games. Had to share carries with Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards. But this year, it's really just Gus Edwards. And I think they're going to give JK the keys to the kingdom. That's why he's projected to get about 70 more carries in two more games. And about a little less than 150 more yards. Now, he did lead the league in yards per carry last year at 6 flat. Still projected to get 9 touchdowns on the ground once again. The biggest issue with JK is that the Ravens don't throw the running backs the ball very much. His receptions, though, are expected to double. 18 last year, 36 expected this year, 272 receiving and 2 touchdowns. But I don't know. I really like JK. Like I said, I'm trying to trade for him in Dynasty, and no one wants to trade me. So
I'd give him to you if I had him, but I have my own running back woes that I got to deal with.
I don't know. I've been sending like first round picks and mid-level receivers like wide receiver 2.
I know it, but
I don't know.
So, yeah. So my number 12, it's kind of funny because my number 12 is a guy that you had a lot lower. That's Cleveland running back Kareem Hunt. Now, even though he's the backup, him and Chubb just have the perfect 1-2 punch going. And last year, they both ended up, I think, in the top 10. I can't remember exactly their placement. Well, then Hunt was just outside the top 10. He was just outside the top 10 then. But my point is that despite Hunt being a backup running back, he's still one of the best fantasy running backs in all of football. Despite the fact that you and ESPN both have him a lot lower than me. He is still the receiving back there for Cleveland, so he'll get the points for that. And I still think he has big playability there with Cleveland. So even on the short routes for the running back, he'll get his yards, he'll get long touchdowns, and yeah, like I said, I think the receptions is what I think is the biggest factor here. And yeah, we've seen it over the last couple of seasons that Cleveland is centered around their running backs. So he, I think, is like the number 2 option in the entire offense. It's Chubb and then it's him. Like they don't even really use their receivers that much. They don't use their tight end a lot. Well, compared to the running backs at least. But yeah, I think Hunt is poised for a huge season. And I mean, I have him here as the last running back 1 in a 12-person league. I believe he could do that. I think he can put up running back 1 numbers. But I mean, I sent you the text after the show last week that I had done a just random free fantasy draft, and I was able to get Hunt as my running back 2. So if you could do that, I think that would be great. But like I said, I think he has the upside of being an RB1.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is that he finished as an RB10 last year, playing, 3-4 games as the sole starter.
Yeah.
And he still only had 841 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns. The receiving numbers aren't great. 38 receptions, 304 yards. The thing is, he scores touchdowns. He scored 11 total last year. Projected only score 9 total this year. But the thing is, like I said, he's not going to necessarily – you can't bank on him getting those games where he's the starter, the sole guy in the backfield. That's why his projections drop him about 250 yards and about 60 carries. Receiving numbers stay about the same except for the touchdowns. So I don't know. I leaned on Kareem last year. I did. He somehow got my scrappy team into my fraternity playoff league.
Yeah. All right. So now moving on to my number 11. It's Chargers running back Austin Eckler. Obviously, I was not that high on him last year, but he has proved me wrong, and I think he's much closer to where I have him here at number 11. Now he's going to have a full season. Hopefully, if he doesn't get hurt, he'll have a full season. And he now has year 2 of just completely Justin Herbert. I don't know why his name just completely escaped me for a second. So I think we all saw what he did with Phillip Rivers. yes, Philip Rivers' game is a lot different than Justin Herbert's because Philip Rivers loved just dunk it down to the running backs. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not to say that that Herbert won't do the same. Obviously, I don't think it'll be as much because he'll try to spread the ball out more. But Eckler is still good in both assets of the running game, though. He'll go out and catch it, and he's good at just the handoffs and running that way too. And I think that I just think that he will just be a essential part of that offense alongside Keenan Allen there too. And it'll just be a three-headed monster there in LA. And yeah, again, his game is based on the catches, which I think will probably go down without Rivers, but
Mm-hmm.
but still, I think that he will put up big numbers this year.
Yeah, I like Eckler, and we'll see in a little bit where I like him. My number 11 is Antonio Gibson, Washington. 14 games last year in his rookie season. Fantastic year. RB13 finish. Probably not the rushing stats he would have liked. A little under 800 yards and 11 touchdowns. 11 touchdowns, though. That really stood out for me. Double digits for a rookie. Has competition for receiving stats out of the backfield, which I will talk about who that guy is later on. But so that kind of quells his value. Otherwise, if he didn't have that and he was, the guy, I think that he would be higher, possibly even into the top 5. But projected 1,085 yards, 9 touchdowns, 46 receptions, 344, and 2 touchdowns. I love that. RB11 is the projection on ESPN, right in line with where I'm at. So I think it's fine. I think you're going to be able to get Antonio, at the back end of the first round, early second. And, if you can get him as your second pick, if you have one of those late first, snake draft, get the early second round pick, and you can get him there after you got a guy, say, like, I don't know. We have a lot of guys to go yet. One of the guys that we have still to go yet. And you get Antonio as your second running back, you'll be set as long as you draft quality receivers later and quarterback and, whatever. So RB10, though, that's where I have Eckler. 10 games last year, injury. That was the thing that I was, when I looked at the 2020, how guys finished, and it's like, man, there's barely any starters at the running back position that played all 16. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Eckler's had injury issues before, but he is not a running back. He is a dual threat. He's a total scrimmage yards back.
Mm-hmm.
530 rushing, 403 receiving last year, 54 receptions, only 3 touchdowns. That was one of the big issues. But like I said, he played 10 games, so still you would like to have more than 3 touchdowns in 10 games. The projections are pretty good. 858 rushing yards, 188 carries. I think that's pretty good for Eckler. See, he's a guy, unlike Swift, who had the same 188 carry projection. Eckler, I would be okay with 188. I think that's perfectly fine for him. So, yeah, I really like him there. And 8 total touchdowns there, which is perfect. 74 reception projection too, which is crazy. RB9 on ESPN.
Yeah, I'd be perfectly fine with all those numbers happening. He is my RB2 in our Dynasty League, so I'd be perfectly fine with that.
Josh Jacobs, your RB10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I know you had him way lower than me. You had him at your number 20, but I don't know. Maybe it's a little biased that I put him here at 10. I normally don't like Jacobs, but I'm kind of hoping for a big season out of him because even though it doesn't really matter, he is the running back I drafted as my RB1 in that free league I was just talking about. So,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a little part of me is like, I hope he just bursts out and becomes the running back that everybody thought he was going to be when he was coming out. Um, and I get the whole Kenyon Drake thing, but uh, I mean, Jacobs has had running backs behind him before, and he's still the been a top fantasy running back, I think, um, despite the injuries and stuff. But if he can stay healthy and if he can um, put in a full season, like I said, I think that the Raiders can use him and Drake is almost kind of like the Browns use their running backs. Like they can use them both equally and get them both as many fantasy points as possible. Um, I mean, we'll talk about Drake a little bit more later, but that's beside the point. I just think Jacobs in that offense. I mean, they did lose a couple starters on the offensive line, which is a hit to him a little bit. And they did lose their number one receiver with Aguilar going to New England. But I just think that in their situation, I think the car is going to go to him a lot, whether that be on the ground or out in the flat. And I just think he's going to rack up points this year.
Yeah.
All right. So that was my number 10. My number 9 is my starting running back, my number one running back in our dynasty league, Cleveland running back Nick Chubb. So I kind of alluded to him a couple times before when I was talking about Hunt because they are teammates. But Chubb, like you had mentioned too, Chubb is the ground and pound running back in that offense because Kareem Hunt is the pass catcher there.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick Chubb will get you the points on the ground. He'll get the touchdowns as long as he can stay healthy. That was why he missed those the beginning of the season, right? Or was it suspension? I forget.
No, he missed middle of the season.
Or whenever that was. That was because he got hurt though, right?
Injury, yeah.
That's what I thought. So if he can stay away from getting injured, which I feel like is a very big theme in all these running backs, we've said it a lot. If they can stay on the field, then they can show their full potential. I mean, we kind of alluded to it, like I said, when we were talking about Hunt, but Hunt played those 4 extra games that Chubb wasn't there, and Chubb still finished ahead of him in points. So with a full season, I think Chubb can. I mean, I haven't at number 9, but I think he can definitely reach the top 5 if he can play the full season and play up to his potential, especially being that he is the focal point of that offense.
Yeah, and I have Chubb a little higher, but
well, I mean, the only reason I put him at 9 though is because of Hunt too, because the two of them share so many carries and stuff. I think that kind of hinders Chubb a little bit. But if Chubb were to become the sole running back in that offense, I think he would definitely vault up into the top 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My number 9 here is Zeke Elliott. He is no longer, an elite running back. The thing is, again, one of the things that surprised me when I was looking at going through the stats was he finished as RB9 last year, right where I have him. Just under 1,000 yards at 979, still averaged 4 per carry. even without Dak and offensive line injuries, whatnot. 8 total touchdowns. Had a boatload of receptions, more than I thought Zeke usually got, but 52 last season. So he can still play. The Dak return should help with the passing game, taking more pressure off the running game. And we'll have to see. I do think he'll have a bounce back year. He's projected for a little bit over 1,100 yards. 10 rushing touchdowns is the projection this year, which I like that for Dynasty. 54 receptions, 400 yards, and another 2 touchdowns there. So RB6 is the projection ESPN has. They like him a lot this year. And I don't have a choice. I have to trust him in Dynasty. We'll see if he falls to me in redraft leagues, because it seems like he used to every single year. But I don't know. Number 8 is where I have Nick Chubb. 12 games last season and still finishes RB11. Still got over 1,000 yards. 12 rushing touchdowns in 12 games is just ridiculous. Thing about Chubb, doesn't catch the ball. Kareem Hunt does that. But I don't feel like they throw the running backs the ball a lot anyways. It's mostly the receivers, I feel like. Because like we said, Kareem only had, 38 receptions as well. Chubb only got 16. Yeah, so that's the 54 between the top 2 backs. Yeah, I think that's what limits Nick Chubb's potential in fantasy, is that he doesn't get receptions. So you're going to have to lean on him running the ball and rushing for touchdowns, which is fine considering what his projections are. 1,200 yards, 11 rushing touchdowns. A big uptick in receptions, actually. Like I said, those missed games, that's where he's going to make up points this year. 35 receptions is the projection for 280 yards, as well as another touchdown. So 12 total touchdowns projected. Once again, moves up 1 spot to RB10 with a fully healthy season. So Dave Montgomery, Chris.
Yeah. So I know you had him a little lower than me. But I mean, he showed what he can do when he's the primary running back in that offense. Granted, his quarterback from last year isn't there anymore. I mean, one of them is, but his starting running back, quote unquote, starting quarterback from last year isn't there anymore. But whoever the starting quarterback is in Chicago, whether it's Foles, whether it's Dalton, whether it's Fields, whoever it is, I don't think that matters. And I don't think that the return of Tariq Cohen matters. I was a Tariq Cohen fantasy owner at one point, and he just disappointed me week after week. Yes, he is the pass catcher. Yes, he can do all that, but Tariq Cohen is not a fantasy running back, in my opinion. But David Montgomery, like I said, last year, he showed that he can be a solid starting running back. And I just think that because he showed what he can do last year, I think that the Bears will lean on him more and I don't think that Tariq Cohen will get as much playing time and as much catches and all that, or as much touches, I should say. And obviously, I think that even if they do bring in Tariq Cohen for the pass catching situations, I just think that David Montgomery, in his opportunities, will produce a lot more, whether that's the goal line, whether that's the short yardage situations. And granted, I think despite the Bears offense kind of being a little lackluster, I think that defense will keep the scores low and thus keep them in closer games and not really having to throw the ball that much. And I think it'll help him too if Justin Fields ends up starting, though. Because, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like rookie quarterbacks like to lean on their running back sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And Montgomery is the starting running back there for Chicago. So if Fields does become the starter at some point, I think that Montgomery's value will go up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I like Montgomery. Just the lack of production throughout 3/4 of the season last year, and turning it on in the last 4 games or so scared me. And like I said, Trey Cohen coming back, Damian Williams in the fold, Khalil Herbert as well. It's going to be tough. But what I did like to hear today, or maybe it was yesterday, was that the Bears do plan on giving Montgomery a workload, 20 plus touches per game.
Mm-hmm. I would take that.
Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, my number 7 is Jonathan Taylor. And after the news that came out about Carson Wentz today, especially if Wentz is out for an extended period of time, even though it doesn't sound like because of this he will be, but we all know that he's going to get injured again at some point this season because it's Carson Wentz. But I think especially if Carson Wentz isn't the starter, that helps Jonathan Taylor's value even more, because much like I just said with Montgomery with Fields, Eason, even though he's not a rookie, this would be his first time starting, and I think that he will lean on Jonathan Taylor a lot. I mean, the Colts in the past have kind of gone with a committee with Nyheim Hines and whoever else they had there, but now I think they have a bona fide number 1 running back that they don't have to do the committee approach anymore. So he's going to kind of take care of probably, I'd say, 80% of the carries at least. And I think that's a big reason why he's going to be a solid fantasy running back, because I think the Colts, their defense is so good that they'll keep them in low scoring games. And I mean, yeah, Jonathan Taylor, his situation, like I said, is a lot like Montgomery's. He has a solid defense and a potential quote unquote rookie quarterback starting for him. And even if Wentz does eventually play and whatnot, I think he'll enjoy having a guy like Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, because I don't think he ever really had a guy with Jonathan Taylor's caliber when he was in Philly. I mean, he had like Jay Ajayi for that one season, but I don't think Jay Ajayi was all that great. And he had, was he there when Blunt was there? Wasn't Blunt on the Eagles at one point?
Yeah, he was on the Super Bowl team.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. So, yeah, he had him there too. But I just think Jonathan Taylor is better than any of the running backs that Carson Wentz has played with before. So I think he'll enjoy having that new toy to play with there. And it also helps, too, that the Colts, I don't think, really have that great of a receiving core either. So the Colts will lean on the running game, I think, more than they will the passing game, which will help Jonathan Taylor's numbers go up.
Your guy Michael Pittman's there though, Chris.
Yeah, well, he's disappointed me thus far, so I'm not too happy with him.
My number 7 is Aaron Jones. 14 games last year, still got 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns. A grand regression from his legendary 2019 campaign, but still finished as the RB5. ESPN and I are right on track once again. We are together on RB7 status as the projection. A little over 1,000 yards, sticking with 9 rushing touchdowns, upping the receptions by 10, about 100 about 80 yards more there, and 1 more receiving touchdown. So I think the Jamal Williams departure really helps Aaron Jones, because AJ Dillon is not what Jamal Williams was. Jamal Williams is more of the pass catcher. AJ Dillon is more of a runner and a bruiser. So I think that's going to give the 10 receptions. I can easily see that being increased to 57 this year. So I have no issues with what they have Aaron Jones, and I might actually look at trying to take him this year. I usually stayed away from him. I don't know why, but he's been pretty good last couple of years.
Yeah.
Number 6. This is another one we had the same. This was the other one. I believe we only had the 2. So I will start off though, since it's my turn. Saquon Barkley at number 6. 2 games last year. Finished as RB 120. But I don't have his 19 stats on here. He didn't play that whole season either. So got to stay on the field, Saquon. And ESPN thinks he can. Or at least if he does, they think he's going to have a great season, because projected as RB2.
Wow.
1,228 yards, 10 touchdowns, 60 receptions, 454 yards and 2 touchdowns, 302 fantasy points for Saquon. So he's down at 6 for me because of the injuries, and we know he can still be elite when he's on the field, but he needs to stay on the field.
Yeah. I mean, I have him at 6 for the same reason as you. The injuries were a big reason why I had to leave him out of the top 5. But the fact that the Giants as a whole on their offense kind of got better, definitely got a better receiving core with the addition of Kenny Golladay. And I mean, their offensive line is still not the greatest. It's still suspect, especially with the injury happening today. But yeah, if Saquon can stay on the field, we've all seen what he can do. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's the big factor, though, is if he can stay on the field. That's a big reason why. That's a big reason why I decided to not keep him in our keeper league anymore, is because he's been hurt for the majority of the last 2 seasons. So he's not worth that first round pick that I used on him. And that's why I instead went with Antonio Gibson, who I don't even know if anybody used a draft pick on him. I don't even remember. I think I picked him up after the draft, so he was on the waiver for me. So I don't know if I even lose a pick from that.
Your last.
But anyway. Okay, well, I wouldn't care. Yeah, so I think that he has the potential, obviously, like we both said, he has the potential to be that. I don't know if he's going to get to those RB2 numbers, though, that they project, regardless of if he stays healthy or not, because there's 3 or 4 running backs that I think will definitely finish ahead of him. But, yeah, the big question mark, like we both said, is his health and if he could stay on the field.
All right, this is where you have Aaron Jones.
Yeah, so my number 5 is Aaron Jones. I feel like you and I have had a lot of very similar picks, but just like one spot off or 2 spots off. Mm-hmm. But anyway, my number 5 is Aaron Jones, and I have him down here for a lot of the same reasons you had him at your number 7. Aaron Jones, I mean, I'm not expecting him to have the 2019 season that he had. It would be unrealistic to think that he would have that kind of season, because that kind of success that he had that year, I mean, it's hard for anybody to do that once, let alone twice. But I do think now that everything's kind of coming back together for Green Bay, having Aaron Rodgers there, somewhat happy. Devontae Adams is working on his deal now and all that. And I think even having Randall Cobb back, kind of having the old gang back together, I think will kind of revitalize everybody on that offense. And, I mean, you can't get much better than Aaron Rodgers was last year being the MVP. But I just think that all the pieces coming together will actually help Aaron Jones even more. Again, not saying he's going to get back to the 2019 form, but I think he'll have a better season than he did last year. So I think it'll be somewhere in between those 2 seasons. And yeah, I definitely think he's going to be one of the top 5 fantasy running backs next year. Even though you and ESPN had him at 7, didn't ESPN have him at 7 as well?
Yeah.
So, I mean, either way, I think that's a solid season for him, whether he's 5 or 7. But I just have a little bit more faith in him than you guys do.
My 5 is where I have Jonathan Taylor, 15 games as a rookie. Great season. 1,169 yards, 11 rushing touchdowns. Little, just a yard under 300 receiving, 36 receptions. Something that not a lot of people thought he could do. It will hurt a little bit with Marlon Mack coming back. They do still have Jordan Wilkins. Nyheim Hines is still there. I don't think it matters. Jonathan Taylor is a workhorse. He's been that throughout his college career at Wisconsin, and he was that last year for them in his rookie season. 272 carries, 1,216 yards, 11 touchdowns, once again on the ground, projected RB8 is what ESPN has him at. That's because of the limited receptions, 41 for 308 and 2 touchdowns. But yeah, I think he's fine. I have him in Dynasty as well, which I love. So maybe he can fill the Zeke void. Hopefully, we'll see. Like I said, his value is definitely up after the Wentz issue now. So number 4, Derrick Henry. Finished as the RB3 last year because of receptions. He does not catch the ball. But he did have a just, phenomenal 378 carries, 2,027 yards, and 17 touchdowns on the ground. 19 receptions, 114 yards, 333 fantasy points. He's not going to do that again. Absolutely not. He won't get the same amount of carries. He'll get less. I do like ESPN. They have him as RB5, 327 carries, 1,534 yards, 13 rushing touchdowns, 27 receptions, 201 yards, and 1 touchdown. 285 fantasy points. I like those. Those are more realistic projections for Derrick Henry. Running backs don't run for 2,000 yards back to back. So
I'll say my piece in a little bit.
Dalvin Cook for you.
Yeah, so Dalvin Cook is number 4 for me. Obviously, when he's on the field, he's one of the best running backs in all of football. But that's the issue, much like a lot of these other guys on this list. When he's on the field, that's the big problem. He hasn't been able to stay on the field, I don't think, at all over his career. Like, I think he's missed at least a game in every season he's played so far.
2 last year.
Yeah. But I think that's why I have him at 4, though, is because the injury history for him is so deep, and there's been so many injuries with him. Granted, some are smaller than others, but they still kept him out, like you said, for 2 games last year. And I mean, in that offense, it's almost like a seamless transition. They lost Stephon Diggs, but then Justin Jefferson has been one of the best receivers. He was one of the best receivers last year. And so the fact that he has 2 good receivers helps him out a lot too, because that takes some of the workload off of him. And I mean, he does have a solid backup behind him with Madison, but I mean, Madison isn't quote unquote good enough to take a lot of carries away from them. So as long as Dalvin Cook can stay healthy, and as long as the offense stays the way it is, granted, I think that their defense isn't nearly as good as it has been in the past. So I think that they're going to be in a lot more shootout games than they have been in the past. So they're not going to be able to run it as much. But still, I think that if he can stay on the field, his production will be right there where I have him, like somewhere around the number 4 running back in football.
Your number 3, Alvin Kamara.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Kamara, I have at number 3. I don't expect him to have as good of a season as he has in the past, because he has Drew Brees, who, much like Phillip Rivers, love to do the dink and dunk to the running backs. But I think despite that, Kamara is still going to be a central point in that offense, especially with Michael Thomas not being there for the first quarter of the season or whatever it is. And the fact that now they're losing like Deontay Harris, and they're still trying to figure out who everybody is on that roster. But Kamara, I think, I mean, we've seen it before. He's had those monster games. Like, was it the Thanksgiving game or whatever it was last year where he had the 6 touchdowns? And I mean, he has that ability to take over a game and just score every single point in that game. Like, and it helps that he's one of the best pass catching running backs in all of football too. That's where he gets most of his points, is through the pass catching. Because then they have Latavius Murray, who I had on my list earlier, as the bruiser, like short down kind of short yardage kind of running back. So despite having a guy like Jameis Winston who likes to air out the ball and not really throw it short, I still think that in that system, Jameis Winston will kind of develop the shorter passes to guys like Kamara. And I don't see Kamara having a season below what I have him there at number 3.
Well, I have Dalvin Cook at number 3. 14 games last year, RB2 finish. Over 1,500 rushing, 16 touchdowns, paired with 44 catches, 360 receiving yards, and a score. ESPN has him right where I have him, RB3. Decreased numbers. Again, it's hard to run for 1,500 yards back to back. Still around 300 carries, though, 1,350 yards, 12 rushing touchdowns, a little regression there. but upped their receptions 51, 399, and 2 touchdowns, which I like. You know, they're going to run the ball in Minnesota. That's what they run a Shanahan, or not Shanahan. They run a Kubiak, because it's Clint Kubiak, I believe, is the offensive coordinator there. They run a Kubiak style passing game, play action, run the ball, zone rushing scheme. So Dalvin's going to be fine. He's going to get his. Madison, like you said, doesn't really affect his production. So very safe pick if you're in the top 3. Now, number 2, this is where I have Alvin Kamara. Missed 1 game last season. Couldn't get over 1,000 rushing yards, but that comes with only running the ball 187 times. Did score 16 touchdowns, like you alluded to. Those 6 of those came in 1 game. But yeah, again, going back to what you said though, 83 receptions last year, led the league for running backs, 756 yards, 5 touchdowns, finished as the number 1 running back in fantasy. This year, it's lowered expectations. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's not as good of a passing game that they're going to have. The receivers, I don't know. But everything is lowered for him. The carries, actually, they projected the exact same number of carries, 187. But 861 rushing yards. I get why that's lowered, because he averaged 5 yards per carry last year. So down to 4.6 is right. And then I also understand why it's 7 rushing touchdowns. Like we said, 6 of those were in 1 game. So without that 1 game, he has 10. So I get why it's 7. I think he can probably get 9 rushing touchdowns, though, I think. And then 77 receptions, 683 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I mean, the thing is he's dropping 11 total touchdowns on the projections from last season. So, yeah.
Well, that's all because of his his game is the pass catching, like I said before, but I think a big reason is the changing of guard at quarterback. Like I said, it goes from Drew Brees, who loved to just toss it to him right there, to Jameis Winston, who would rather throw it 60 yards down the field.
Yeah. Yeah. Projected as RB4 this year.
Yeah. So we both had him above ESPN, but my number 2 is a guy who I'm assuming is probably your number 1, and that's Christian McCaffrey with the Panthers. It'd be weird if you didn't have him on your list. But anyway, yeah, so McCaffrey, obviously 2 years ago, he had that incredible season. He had 2,000 all-purpose yards, 1,000 from both receiving and rushing. And not that he wasn't on the map before, but that made him the bona fide number 1 running back there, whatever. And yes, I do think he has the potential to get back to that sort of performance. I don't know, like you said, it's hard to get 2,000 yards in general. So I don't know if he's going to hit the 2,000 yard mark again. Again, I hate pulling the Sam Darnold card, but that's where I'm going with this. I don't believe in Darnold whatsoever. So I think that McCaffrey's receiving numbers are going to drop pretty drastically. His rushing numbers, it's going to probably go on pace with what he usually does, but that's because Darnold only has to put the ball like this, and then McCaffrey grabs it and does his own thing. But, and I also think not only that, but Darnold has the previous chemistry with like guys like Robbie Anderson, not guys like it is Robbie Anderson. So I think that in like a pressure situation, he'll look for Anderson before he would look for McCaffrey. And I just think that'll take away from a lot of his touches. But I'm also putting him at number 2 because of the injury as well from last year. I'm very hesitant to draft him if I would even get the chance to, because I haven't been number 1 in any of my leagues, and I don't think I will. So I won't even have the chance to draft him. But I'd be very hesitant to draft him if he were available because of the injury. I mean, all signs point to him being back and ready, but still. And then my number 1 is King Henry, the Tennessee Titans Titan of a running back. Obviously, like you said, he had the 2,000-yard season last year. Probably not going to repeat that again, but that's fine. I still think that he's going to get touchdowns. And I still think he'll get, I don't think he'll get 2,000 again, but I think he can still get somewhere around 1,400 at the very least, maybe even more. And yes, I get that that's 60 less points, but, yeah. Wouldn't that be? Yeah, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that he'll make up for that with the touchdowns, because yes, they have Julio Jones now, but we all know that Julio Jones doesn't score touchdowns. He gets the yards, but then I think that Henry will just finish those off and score those short yardage touchdowns. So I think that he can get probably 15 or more touchdowns again. And I mean, he's also shown the ability to break off the 99-yarders, so I can see him doing that at least once or twice again. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Henry, and I know we've said in the past that we thought he was going to regress, which he proved us both wrong, because we both said he was going to regress this past season, and he had the best season of his career. But I think that this year, since I think the Titans are going to go to a more pass-friendly system with Julio Jones being there, I think that actually helps Henry in the long run and gets him like he'll be fresher towards the end of the season and into the fantasy playoffs. And I think that'll be a big reason for everybody. I mean, he was the reason. I don't want to say he was the reason, but he was one of the reasons why I lost in the it was the championship that I lost in last year. Because he had just such a bad performance. But that was because of his huge workload. But now, like I said, I think that the Titans will take some of that workload off of him, and it'll keep him fresher throughout the season.
Yeah. The addition of Julio and maybe the increased passing attack will also lead to smaller numbers in the box for him. So my number 1 is Christian McCaffrey. Only 3 games last season. Finished it. The thing is, though, he only played 3 games, but he still scored a 90.4 fantasy points in 3 games. Bro, 378 total yards, 6 total touchdowns in 3 games, 17 receptions. RB 54 finish for a guy that played 3 games. Yeah. So he's projected on ESPN as the number 1 running back. 1,065 yards off 250 carries, 10 touchdowns. big factor here. 85 receptions, 677 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He just actually eked out. Who was the RB2 projected? Who do we have that? I can't remember who was. Oh, it was Saquon. That's right. Yeah. He's projected to outscore Saquon by 31 fantasy points. So, I don't know. Darnold, it's fine. You know, Christian McCaffrey will be there. He's a great route runner. And he really didn't have injury issues until last season. Throughout his collegiate career, he had a little bit, but wasn't anything major that he couldn't play through, unlike last year. So I think he'll bounce back because it's different than Saquon. Saquon has had 2 straight years of injury issues. McCaffrey, it's only been 1. So I think hopefully it'll only be this one.
What was it again, though? What was the injury?
It was a calf, I believe. I think so.
Like I said, it seems like he's good to go now, but a calf is a big, that muscle gets used a lot for running backs, especially. So, I mean, let's hope that it doesn't hinder him. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, it was either a calf or an ankle, but I think I'm right in the calf. So, but yeah, I think he's just a beast, and I actually didn't think that I was gonna put him number 1, but when I looked at all the other guys, and I thought about what their situations were, yeah, and then I looked at the stats to confirm McCaffrey is my guy, number 1. So, like you though, I don't usually have a chance at taking him number 1. So, all right, sleepers. So I combined yours and I's, most of them, anyways. But I don't know where my list is. So we'll start off. One of yours, one of mine. Zach Moss with the Bills. He's coming into his 2nd year in the league. Played 13 games last year. Finished as the RB46 in a timeshare with Devin Singletary. Not great. I mean, the Bills' rushing game overall wasn't good. Mm-hmm. So he struggled there, but still averaged 4.3 yards per carry, 112 carries there. Barely had any receptions, though, 14 for a little under 100 yards. So, projected as RB35 this year. Going to get up over 500 yards. Still has 4 rushing touchdowns there. And what I like to see is that the receptions increased to 33 and 250 yards.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think that Zach Moss has a chance to be a fantasy player, but I think the big factor for him, though, is, like you mentioned, his share with Devin Singletary. If Singletary gets hurt again like he has, then I think it's Zach Moss's job. I don't think there's anybody else that would really step in to take Singletary's carries or touches. So I think, obviously, if he becomes like the primary running back, then I think his value really goes up, and I think he would definitely be a player. But I don't know. I think that's what it would take for him to be on my roster, at least.
Yeah, and then you had Kenyon Drake with the Raiders.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously he was the starter in Arizona. Well, for the most part. He shared carries with Chase Edmonds, but he was the starter. He was the number 1. We aren't really sure what his role will be with the Raiders yet, which is why I put him as a sleeper and not on my list. Because if he has kind of like the role that Chase Edmonds had when he was in Arizona, I think he'll be possibly a solid flex option. But if he's kind of just there and gets like 4 or 5 touches a game, I don't think he's really going to be worth a spot on the roster. But obviously, like I said, we've seen what he can do. When he was in Arizona, he had the best season of his career. What was it, 2 years ago, I think? And he was one of the best fantasy running backs in football. And also, there's also the prospect of Jacobs missing time from injuries and stuff too. So if that happens and he takes over the starting role, he's definitely, I think, a starting caliber running back. So but like I said, we don't know what his exact role is going to be coming out the gate. So that's why I have him as a sleeper and not on my actual list yet.
Yeah, 15 games with the Cards last year. Just over 950 yards on 239 carries, which I was surprised about. 10 touchdowns on the ground, which was big for his fantasy production. Only 25 receptions, though. Obviously, Chase Edmonds ate into that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was surprised is his final finish. RB16 last year.
Mm-hmm.
Very much decreased projections. 480 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns, 113 carries. But increase in receptions with being the second back, 52 for 380 and 2 touchdowns. Decrease of about 20 fantasy points, which drops him all the way down to RB30 projection.
I'm surprised that he only has a decrease of 20 points, though. Going from the primary back to being a backup.
Well, the 52 receptions, it's 52 points.
Yeah.
Which offsets the little under 500 yards rushing that he loses.
Mm-hmm.
But he also adds, he also loses four touchdowns, which I think are where the 20 points comes in. All right. Tariq Cohen for the Bears. Only 3 games last season. 17.5 fantasy points, was not good at all in any of those games. Tied for RB 110. So yeah, but did average 5.3 yards per carry with his 14 carries that he did get this year. Projected 273 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, 50 receptions, 390 yards and 2 touchdowns. Obviously, that's where Tariq Cohen makes his money, is catching the ball. RB 44 is where he projects right now. So we'll have to see. I just put him on there because before he got hurt last year, 2019, 2018, he was like one of the marquee PPR backs. So.
Yeah, well, I drafted him because of that. And he has not done anything for me. So I don't even know if he's on my roster anymore. I can't remember if I kept him or not. But yeah, I had him in our dynasty league. If I don't still have him, but yeah, I'm not going anywhere near him in any of my other leagues. I'm done trying to trust him and let him do anything. So I've jumped off the Tariq Cohen bandwagon.
All right. How about Tony Pollard, Chris?
Well, I kind of mentioned him before when we were talking about Zeke. Obviously, he's filled in nicely when Zeke was out and whatnot, or even when Zeke is playing, but he gets a carrier to whatever. He has shown flashes, so I think that he can be a solid running back. Not right now, though. With the way the offense is set up, if Zeke stays on the field, stays healthy, I mean, personally, I think that the Cowboys should go with a more committee approach. Even if they do like 60-40 or whatever, with Zeke being the one that gets the more carries. But obviously, I don't think that's the plan right now. I think Pollard is just the backup still. So I don't think he'll get that much time. But I do see a path, like I said, that if Pollard does get the playing time and gets the touches, I think he could be a solid fantasy running back.
Yeah. Last year, RB41 finished, 101 carries, 435 yards, 4 touchdowns. What I was surprised is that he didn't get too many receptions, 28 for 192 yards. Projected to only get 25 this year, 409 yards. The rushing stats are similar. I mean, both rushing and receiving are both very close to what last year's were. It's just decreased. Total touchdowns decreased by 1 as well. So RB50 is where ESPN has him right now.
Yeah, it's probably about right. But like I said, if something happens to Zeke or if they decide to do the committee, I think would definitely increase his value a lot. And I think if he were to become the primary back there, I think he would definitely jump onto the list of top 30.
It's kind of funny. He's the only Memphis running back that hasn't really done anything in the league in the last couple of years. We'll see what Kenny Gainwell does in Philly this year. But all right, next two, your boys, the Houston Texans.
Yeah, so
I only put 2 of them. I didn't include Ingram. David Johnson first.
Yeah. Well, when I texted you saying Houston running backs, I literally just meant because they have so many that we don't know who's going to be the number one. I mean, obviously it's probably going to be Johnson because he was the number one last year, whatever. But yeah, but because they have so many players, like we said, we don't know who what the distribution of carries and whatnot is going to be. So, but if one of them, like Johnson, takes over the starting role and kind of just runs away with it, I definitely think he's a fantasy player. Obviously not the number one overall status like he was a couple years ago when we started our dynasty league, but
I drafted him number 1. Yeah.
But I think that he will definitely be a fantasy player, especially if Watson isn't there. If Watson isn't there, I mean, right now it would be probably Tyrod as the starter. But we all know what happens to Tyrod when he's the starter. Something always happens to him to then give it to the rookie. And if Davis Mills comes in, I think that just makes David Johnson's thing go way up. I mean, I mentioned it before with some of the other guys. The rookie quarterbacks help the running backs a lot because I feel like the quarterbacks lean on the running backs, especially in those pressure situations. And it helps that David Johnson is a receiving back as well. He goes out and catches it. But yeah, I couldn't, in a normal situation, if there was only like 2 running backs there, then I probably would have put Johnson on my list, probably in the top 30, like the bottom third of it. But because there's so many options and we don't really know what's going on yet, I couldn't put him on the list. But I definitely think he has the potential to be a solid player for fantasy this year.
Yeah, David Johnson, he's on my dynasty league team. I know. But 12 games last year, 691 yards, 6 touchdowns, not terrible. Only 33 receptions, but still finished RB21. Projected as RB27 this year. Very similar stats in full year, though. That's the biggest issue. his stats are projected as close to the same as last year, but it's 5 more games. So I don't know. He could be a solid flex option, I think. The other Houston running back that we have on here, Philip Lindsay, coming over from the Broncos. 11 games there last year because of injuries, 502 yards off 118 carries. Only caught 7 balls. Melvin Gordon was doing that mostly. There, 66 points, RB 66 finish. Projected as RB 52 this year. 105 carries, 464 yards, 3 touchdowns, and only 21 receptions. I mean, I thought Philip Lindsay could catch the ball.
Yeah.
But apparently he's not going to, as far as ESPN thinks.
Well, I mean, that's also a product of having David Johnson ahead of him in the depth chart. David Johnson will probably get most of those opportunities.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, they do have a third guy, Mark Ingram, who may or may not be on the roster at the start of the season. So we'll have to wait about that. But this is the top 2 guys on the depth chart at this point. And the last sleeper here that we have, J.D. McKissick. He is another guy that is a PPR stud. 365 rushing yards on 85 carries. 3 total touchdowns. That was probably his biggest knock, that he doesn't score touchdowns. But he had 80 receptions. Second only to Alvin Kamara. 589 receiving yards. Finished RB 17 last year. He was another guy, just like Kareem Hunt, that helped me slide my way into a low-seeded spot in my fraternity league last year. Projections are way down this year. Only 63 carries, 275 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and only 52 receptions. RB 37 is his projection right now.
Yeah, well, his numbers are projected to drop like that because Antonio Gibson had such a breakout year. He's taken over as the bona fide number 1. But yeah, McKissick will get his opportunities, but not nearly as many as he was last year. I don't know. I think that, like I said, they had Alex Smith at quarterback last year.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't much of a downgrade, but I don't know. I think that I don't know. Again, maybe this is just me being biased because I have Antonio Gibson on my team, but I hope that McKissick doesn't have a good season, because that also probably means that Gibson doesn't have as good of a season as I'd like him to.
Yeah, I agree with the Fitzpatrick thing. He, just like Jameis Winston, likes to throw the ball around deeper, not short necessarily. But yeah, McKissick could have flex value if he goes along like he did last year. So we'll have to see. They have new weapons now in Washington that can open some stuff up. So that is all our sleepers. We have rookies here left. So I put 6 guys on here that I think have chances of getting the ball. First off, Javonte Williams in Denver, sharing the load with Melvin Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly even the starter. Some people have him as being the starter. ESPN has him projected above Melvin Gordon. So, that's one of the biggest camp battles at the running back position anyways. So I have to wait and see hopefully it's figured out by the time, we got a draft. So we know.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, he was a big reason why I put Melvin Gordon low on my list because regardless of if he's the starter or not, I think that they're going to split carries a lot. Like they're going to do a pretty even split, I think. So they're, they're not going to, I think that Williams will take a lot of production away from Gordon. And I think he'll have a solid season himself, but I don't know if he will really have, like you said, we have to see who wins the battle and who's the starter, but I don't know. Right now, I don't think he would be on my team. If anything, he'd be a flex option for me.
Yeah. Next one is Trey Sermon. Now, he's also one that I think, anyways, in a running back battle out in San Francisco with Raheem Mostert, 3rd-round pick. So, Trey Sermon, I don't know. I think he has maybe an equal chance, like Javonte Williams, at winning a job.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that Gordon is better than Mostert, though. But so I don't know. I think Sermon has a solid shot at a lot of production there. But also, I don't know. Philosophy-wise, too, I feel like if why am I blanking on the quarterback's name?
Jimmy G.
The one Trey Lance. Thank you. If Trey Lance sees significant time on the field this year, I think they will kind of pair that with Sermon and kind of have the two of them together a lot, building up chemistry. So, and if it's the inverse, if Jimmy G gets a lot of time, I think they'll keep giving Mostert the ball because he's more comfortable having Mostert there because he's been there for a couple years now. So I think that all depends on playing time for the quarterbacks.
Yeah, they can have the all Trey backfield. All they have to do is sign Trey Burton to play as the H-back, and then next rookie here, Rams, Jake Funk, 6th-rounder out of Maryland. Reason why he's on this list is Darrell Henderson needs a backup, and a lot of unproven guys behind him right now. Xavier Jones is one. There's another guy that I'm forgetting what his name is right now, but Jake Funk, I will never forget Jake Funk's name because he brings the funk every day. So I like him. I mean, he was productive at Maryland. He's not fast. That's probably his biggest knock. Mm-hmm. And probably not the strongest either, but he's productive. He'll play a role in special teams. And if he needs to, I think he could have a shot at offense.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, where is he on the depth chart right now? Is he projected as the backup or?
I think I don't know. I think maybe 3rd or 4th.
I mean, I don't know if he really has much value, especially if what I think is going to happen happens, and that's the Rams signing one of those free agent guys like Peterson or Gurley or whoever else. And that would definitely devalue him. But I don't know if he really has any value, even if he is the backup to Henderson. But like I said, I don't see that happening, at least not this year.
Yeah. Well, reason why I didn't put AP or Gurley on was because they don't have any projections. So they're not on team, so that no one can project what they would have.
No.
Next rookie here, Kenneth Gainwell for the Eagles. Unsure of where he'll be on the depth chart week 1. But there's definitely an opportunity to take the backup job behind Miles Sanders. And I think that would bring some value, maybe not enough to get flex, because I think Boston Scott is going to have a prominent role, just like he already did as the pass catching back. But I think there are definitely other carries to be had behind Miles Sanders. So
yeah, I do agree with that, but that's just like you said, it's such a crowded backfield right now that we don't really know who's going to get what role, other than maybe Miles Sanders as the starter. But and yeah, Boston Scott I think will still get a solid chunk of playing time as well. So he's essentially battling for that third spot there, and I mean I think he'll make the roster, but I don't know if he's actually going to make it as the third running back. He might have to make it as a special teamer for now and then work his way up, but I don't know.
Yeah, second to last rookie here, Chuba Hubbard, the new backup in Carolina to Christian McCaffrey. Now he I put him on there because he really doesn't have much competition to be the backup. Reggie Bonifant, I believe, is still on the roster. Not sure who else is there, but I think he will be the primary backup to Christian McCaffrey. And if we see a situation that happened like that happened last year where, McCaffrey went down, Hubbard could have serious fantasy value, not worth the stash right now, but especially with how much workload Christian gets, but it's worth monitoring. And you better be real quick on that computer if McCaffrey gets injured.
But do you, you're a Panthers fan, so you know that the Panthers' tendencies and whatnot. But if McCaffrey goes down again, you think that they would go with Hubbard and not go outside the organization to sign a guy like if Adrian Peterson is still out there or Todd Gurley, one of those guys?
No, I mean they didn't last year. Mike Davis is already on the roster.
Yeah, but that was Mike Davis though. He was already an established veteran. I'm saying a rookie like Hubbard that hasn't played yet. You think they'd still go with him as the primary back?
I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, he showed in college at Oklahoma State that he can handle a heavy workload. He had a 2,000-yard season in college in his sophomore year. So I don't know. I would be fine with it. I think he can do it. It's just, he's got to learn the game. So he's Canadian. So he hasn't played football for that long. He really hasn't. And then the last guy, one of my favorite sleepers of the draft and value selections, Dolphins running back Garrett Dokes, 7th rounder out of Cincinnati. Not going to probably have much of an impact. I figured I'd put him on here because early on in the offseason, I did think that the Dolphins running back job was open. And then, reading more into it throughout the summer, seeing how they ran through OTAs and minicamp, it seems like they're giving Myles Gaskin the job. I'm not really sure how the backup workload is gonna be. Salvin Ahmed is still there. There's another guy as well that they had last year, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins though, Gaskins is the starter, but they I don't even remember. I think Jay Ajayi might have been the last time that they had a number one running back that took all the carries. So even though Gaskin is the number one and Salvin Ahmed's probably the primary backup, I could see them going with a committee approach, and I could see all the running backs getting touches, maybe some more than others, but yeah, I don't know if he's worth it for this year at least.
Patrick Laird. That's another guy that they have in the backfield in Miami. All right, that is the show for today. 3 hours.
I also think that the other rookies are also sleepers, like Carter and ETN, but because you had them on your list, we weren't going to talk about them in the sleepers. But yes, I also believe that they can do it, especially Carter, because he kind of doesn't have any competition.
Yeah.
That is all the show, though, for today. Apologize about the technical difficulties. Hopefully, the show looks good on YouTube. I'll have to check it out tomorrow. But we will be back on Monday with our fantasy wide receiver rankings, top 30 there. And then next Friday, we will be doing our fantasy tight end rankings. Not sure how many we're doing, probably 24. That gets you to two each in a 12-man league. So thank y'all for watching. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. FAApodcast.com is the website. Check out all of our past videos there. Thank you, Chris, and we'll see you later.
See you later.